You're experiencing the Authentic Chaos Podcast, an exploration into our inner selves and journeys of self-discovery. I'm your host, Vahagan Yarnosian, and I'm joined today by my guest, Serene Gao.
Eva Hagen.
Hey, Serene, good to see you. Would you like to say a couple sentences, a couple words about who you are to the audience?
Well, yeah, I'm sure. I would say since I've been doing a lot of things in the city, I've been in Seattle for about 3 years now. This is my third, having a great time, and I think Seattle speaks a lot of personalities, where I am right now in life. So, if you know Seattle, you would kind of know me at this
Okay, the embodiment of Seattle. I like that. Maybe not the words you would use.
embodiment.
So, what's been exciting you lately?
Like I said, summer, there's a lot to do, and I am making a lot of new pretty unlike Seattle, I would say. Unlike the average Seattle-like person.
Yeah?
Um, everybody's heard about the Seattle freeze, I'm sure. Everyone that lives here. And that's something I've been trying to work on personally as well. And recently, one of my first and best friends in Seattle is moving to New York soon. She's having her going away party,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
And she was kind of the bond of all my friends group. Well, yeah, almost all my friends group. So I'm aspiring to be more like her and, take a role in this social scene and making sure that who I care about, my friends, myself, are, getting connected and doing things.
Where do you think that, like, desire to become like her comes from?
I would say that maybe it's because growing up, I've always been introverted and I almost took pride. I still take pride in being that because I think I have this inner world that I just don't show to people easily or don't let people in easily. But getting to know more extroverts and being friends with them, I see qualities I appreciate. So I think I could be extroverted at times too, especially if I think about it as a way to introduce my friends to each other, not focus on myself as much. It's almost like altruistic. It's almost like doing it for people, and it makes me happy. So
Yeah. So so I want to talk about that, but I first want to ask about this inner world. So how would you describe this inner world?
this inner world of myself,
Yeah.
like right now or in the past or in general.
Like, what do you mean as someone who hasn't heard the term like inner world? Like, how would you describe it to someone like me?
I think of it as who I am to myself and kind of this wonderland that I'm trying to protect from the outer world. So, right, that's the inner world is the opposite to the outer world. The outer world is what I present to people. It's kind of the front I put up. It doesn't have to be bad. There are also great qualities of my outer world of this front, but this inner world could be awkward. It could be more intimate, more vulnerable. It's the qualities I want to keep for myself.
Why do you not want to share them with others?
Um, it might not be what I'm most proud of, and there's also the fear that once I start showing it, I change. I might start making these changes with other people.
Do you feel like um why do you have this fear that it will or that it'll have to change?
And people are changing all the time, but I'm sure you feel it too that there's part of you today that was there or had been there for a long time.
Hmm?
And whether you like it or not, or whether I like it or not, I think it's part of my identity. And every time I think about who I am, I think of these qualities. Um, it's almost soothing that I know that part of me is not gonna change, or there is part of me that I wanna hang on to, um, that I won't let go of, and it's comforting in the way that I know this is who I am. When when I'm facing decisions, when I'm um dilemma, I can lean onto these qualities. Okay, this is I'm like thinking about this one time where I made this decision because I think that speaks to me. So I'll remind myself of that today.
I think that's really powerful because and it's very and I find it very grounding. Like a lot of things you said I find very similar analogs within me. I think, could you imagine that? Do you think you're the only person who has this like inner world?
No, I think everyone has inner world, and people's inner worlds um overlap for sure, and we definitely step into each other's inner worlds whether we like it or not. Um
So if everyone has an inner world and kind of understands, why can't we like all empathize with each other and like be our inner, have harmony between our outer and our inner world?
Great question. So well, I think to me, because I think of myself as introspective, so I would like to think that everyone has an inner world, and I that's what I believe, but maybe not everyone would agree, and um some people don't think they have an inner world, or they don't want to touch that inner world. They only care about the outer world, what we present to each other. um that's fine too. I almost feel like they might be able to be more authentic to themselves if they only have one world.
But do you think outer world Serene and inner world Serene are two different people?
um I should have 9 personalities. I'm just kidding.
That's fine. However many.
I have 9 worlds. Yeah.
You're a whole multiverse.
I know. I don't think it's. I wouldn't say for two different people. I almost feel like it's like daytime versus nighttime, like in your dream.
Yeah.
So maybe you're touching into your inner world when you're dreaming, but you're living in your outer world when you're walking, eating, working during the day.
Yeah. There's almost this talk of, and not maybe not talk, but an allusion to light versus dark, like light and shadow, right? Like the outer world is what others see. It is the light shined on you. So you're showing the things that you want to show to that light. But the inner world may be the things in that shadow, the things you want to hide, the things you're maybe ashamed of or don't want other people to see because, like you said, you're worried that they might not accept you. You might lose your community. You might lose your friends if you don't take up on your friend's role, because if you keep your role, there's nothing. They might just leave you.
Yeah.
But consider this. One, we've already established that everyone's probably got an inner world. I don't call it inner and outer world. I call it, like, this is where I come up with the concept authentic chaos, because it is the insanity in us. It is the things that make us weird, that makes us us. And there's a part of that in both inner world Serene and outer world Serene and the other 7 Serenes. And you know, they're not two different people, right? They're all within your same brain. They're all like your personalities. So let's talk about, what are some similarities between outer world and inner world Serene?
For my world specific.
Yeah.
I actually don't think they are like binary. I think they're very much connected.
Okay.
So I want to say what I was saying earlier. I think story where I was helping this young couple. Um, that was a moment where I felt like the inner world, Serene, was more playing more of a prominent role in decision
How
making.
so?
Because usually I'm very risk averse and I don't want to get into trouble. Um, I am on visa, so that just like stopped me from doing a lot of things, and I don't want to, I don't want to stand out from the crowd. But then the inner world me also knows that that's something I had experienced before, and I want to be able to help others when they are in the same situation. So, in a sense, it was more of my intuition. It was intuitive for me to help others.
Yeah.
Regard if we, leaving all the risk and trouble aside, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's like kindness is a
yeah,
core value there.
I think so. But back to your question, was your question how they're different?
No, what are some similarities? Yeah, yeah. I'm sure we could find many ways. I mean, I think even in discussing an outer and an inner world, you're already laying out the difference. So we already discussed like what the differences were between the inner and the outer world. On the surface, they're very different. But I want to explore what's the same. So like kindness seems to be
right, but I do think that in the outer world, it could be presented in a very different way. Um, yeah. So,
how so?
there's a lot more considerations, a lot more fear and worries um, before I can act on my intuition.
So what would Outer World Serene do in the case where she saw a couple that needed help?
I would probably just go to the medic tent and let them know about it, but I wouldn't personally be there.
Wouldn't be
For like an
involved
hour with
personally.
them. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's something. Okay, so that's something to like take note of. Like Outer World Serene does show some compassion, but Inner World Serene shows more of that like empathetic kind. And maybe you need both. Like outer isn't enough and inner isn't enough. You need the combination of the two.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult. It's tricky to decide which side to let out at times. That's when I have to use my judgment and make the smart choice.
Yeah.
And I mess up sometimes, and I'm sure everyone does. So
I'll be the first to tell you we all mess up sometimes.
right,
Some of us more than sometimes, you know?
yeah.
That's part of being human. Okay, so consider this thought experiment. Let's say you met yourself, like another version of you. Um, this person has an inner world. They have a side of themselves that they don't want to show. Maybe they're ashamed of it. They have things they're ashamed of. They have a shadow. Do you like want to stay connected to this person, like have a connection, have a relationship, or do you want that person out of your life?
If they have a inner world that is,
Yeah, would you reject someone from your life for having like the same complexities or the same vulnerabilities or insecurities as you do?
and they show it, and that's like their one world.
Yeah. Like they make you aware of them. Yeah.
I think it's fine if they make me aware of their inner world, which I actually really appreciate, and that's kind of like what I look for when connecting with people. But I'm not so sure if that's their whole world, because I don't, like knowing my inner world, if that's like the only and one world that I have, I don't know if I can.
But you don't know exactly what their like maybe their inner world is different.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
probably different, right?
Mhm.
So, but the point is like if you see more than like the public facing stuff,
Mhm.
if you see them say like show you more of who they are,
Mhm.
do you like see them less for doing?
Of course not. Like I said, that's what I look for.
So in that case, why would you be afraid that someone less of you?
Might be very egoistic for me to say. I don't know if everyone can see what I see.
No, that's fair. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of us probably don't see what other people see, or
Mhm.
that's why I call it a chaos.
Right.
Because to other people, the things that make us us seem random, seem insane, seem chaotic. But to us, there's actually a meaning behind it. There's a reason we did something. Maybe we don't always understand that reason, but there is a reason. And part of our journey, I think, of understanding who we are is to understand this inner world or this authentic chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can better help other people see that too.
Our own chaos.
Yeah. And so that we can see it better for ourselves. Because, and I'll ask you this. Have you ever faced like stress or any kind of like weird negative feeling from like when your inner world and your outer world clashed?
Sure. Yeah. Back to the incident where I was helping these two
Yeah.
young people that were blacked out on Saturday night. It made me very anxious too. Yeah, because I was missing out on the concert. I was missing out on Denzel Curry,
Mm-hmm.
the last act of the night. I was feeling FOMO, so that was kind of the actually not the outer world me. I think it's like the me from both worlds that was having FOMO.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, I don't know if it's inner outer world fighting against each other or just my values competing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does FOMO sit in with your values?
I am a very experience driven person, so um I don't think well like not having FOMO is something I've worked on I think over the years, so I don't have it as bad usually. And because I know that I can probably recreate the experience. I'm having a different kind of just comparable. Um yeah, so I don't think it affects me usually, but like when I was put on spot to like make decisions whether to help people or enjoy my night in peace and happiness, that was something that was challenged me.
Do you think you didn't do you think you sacrificed your own happiness to help?
Some degree, but then after I got home at like and I wrote that I actually felt I'm glad that I helped them. It made me happy. And I knew I would regret it if I didn't. So I kind of reinforced that feeling for myself, letting myself know that yes, I was happy, but it was just wasn't the kind of happiness that I expected.
Yeah. Do you think like if you had just gone to, let's say you didn't even know about this couple, your paths missed each other somehow, and you just were at the concert, you had a good time. Do you think you would have felt that same level of happiness?
I probably wouldn't be journaling about Denzel Curry.
Yeah. So it was like it was an event. It caused a feeling that was so noteworthy. You decided to write it down, like to record it into your history. And so I think that really shows like how you kind of intuitively prioritize your values. You say you're an experience driven person, but maybe you're really a kindness first driven person. Maybe it's not really maybe it's the experiences that drive your ego to want to do things. But it's like chasing like dopamine versus like helping people. That's like a cornerstone of your soul, of who you are. That's how your inner and outer worlds connect.
But helping people is also an experience.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how truly altruistic that is.
That's a great question. philosophers for ages have wondered asked the question, is there such thing as a fully altruistic task? Because people that do, like you said, right? Like, you have this good feeling, and that is inevitably a driver, or at least like a benefit of you helping people. This good, warm and fuzzy feeling you get inside of like extending your heart to another. And so the question is there ever truly a 100% selfless act? Can you do something that like you hate? Like, push yourself to doing something you hate and that provides you no joy whatsoever, no source of happiness, just to help other people. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe for some that are, I think it would require some like really like intense, like either traumas or something to like actually remove the joy, the selfishness you get in being selfless. And I don't think there's a problem in that. I think it's good to be selfish in these cases too. Like, you take care of yourself, you also take care of others. And helping people is you also taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I've thought about that too. And I don't think it matters at the end of the day.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's also a really good point. One thing I've been pondering in the past month or so is, why do we need to know why? Why do we need to understand 100% why we do the things we do, or why certain things make us feel good? Some of it we're never going to really understand, and pushing us to figure out why, it's going to just drive us crazy. Like, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that it is we feel it, and it feels good.
Feels good to know what we're doing. Well, there's the part where you want to change your behavior. That definitely helps to understand why, because then you can kind of rewire your thinking and act differently.
Yeah.
But there are also times where we want to know why we do things. Get to know ourselves. And maybe it's like what you said earlier. We can connect with, if we get to know our inner world better, then people around us will also see that better and connect with us better. And that's ultimately, at least to me, I think having meaningful connection, one of the biggest life goals.
I think that's a great goal. That's something that I've been trying to do this year. Improve the connections, the relationships in my life that I wither through neglect. And through that, I've been taking a lot of intentional trips to like family and friends. I'm really grateful for it because, ultimately, the things that bring me the most, like, the things that make it easier for me to choose happiness every day are when I make these intentional efforts to improve my relationships and connect with people that I love, and like people that are maybe just total strangers to me. Like, humans are social creatures. These connections matter, and they provide us like sort of joy. Like, we're not going to remember the jobs we did. We're not going to care about the money. Okay? We're going to care about the people in our lives, the people that we cared about. Like, not that our house went up 40% in value over like a couple year period. Like, that stuff's not going to matter at all.
I agree with you.
You know, I've been thinking, another thing I've been thinking about is like a lot of so why do you say it will matter for you? Like things like property value.
I can be quite materialistic. I think it's important for me to have those. If I want to chase the experience I want, if I want to have the luxury, have the privilege of building connections, I have to feel good about my life. And
why do you say it's a luxury of building?
I think if I'm stressed about feeding myself, I'm stressed about not having a job, if I'm stressed about not having a safe place to stay, I don't think I'm capable of, making connections.
That makes sense. Yep, you've got to take care of your needs.
Right.
Got to have food to eat, clean water to drink, fresh air to breathe, a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you have all of that, right?
Yes, thank you.
So,
I guess what I meant is that I also need the resources to work on my hobbies, to not having to work overtime every day, all day. Um, to get to a good place in life where I don't have to worry about these things.
but do you think you can make connections without maybe the hobbies or the extra things? Like, let's say your all of your needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to live a fine life. You're eating, you're drinking water, you've got shelter. Can you make connections with people through that? Can you make friends?
Now I feel like I'm saying that I can't make friends without being rich. I will only meet people when I'm rich.
If that were the case, none of us would make any friends in college.
I guess I was just thinking that, like, of course I'm making friends, I'm making connections now, but I'm also grateful that I have the money to go out with my friends.
Yeah, but
Um,
you don't need it. That's an extra.
so say if I don't have money to go out at all, would I
Yeah,
be able to make friends?
yeah.
Very difficult for me
How come?
because I wouldn't know what we can do. Do we just hang out?
Go to a park.
I guess it's just hard for me to myself doing.
Um, what is different about you saying let's go out for drinks, let's hang out, park?
Maybe it's because by committing myself and committing my time to hang out with people, if we're going to a certain bar, restaurant, or doing certain activities, I know that I'm gonna have a good time regardless of how the conversation goes. Whereas if I just show up at the corner of the street to meet up with someone and we do absolutely nothing,
Why does it have to be you
very
have to
extreme.
spend? Why does it have to be so extreme? Why is it you either go to a bar or you do
Oh,
not
give me a scenario, then that's like less extreme. Not spending any money.
go to the park?
Helen Henderson.
Yeah.
Um, I would do that with a good friend, like with someone I already know. But I probably
Okay.
wouldn't go there to meet up with someone new
What about like host people? Have people come over, little like gathering,
at the park.
or like at your house.
That costs money.
Well, you're feeding. Well, but assume you have a little bit of money to like
Sure.
to feed people.
But that's all I need. I'm not saying that I need a mansion in order to host.
But you
I'm
said,
just-
but you mentioned that you're materialistic in this way because the materials help you.
yeah, that's what I meant. So if I were to host, which I do, I host people in my apartment building. Um, I would like shop for ingredients to make like custom cocktails. Like I go all the way out.
But you don't have to if you don't.
But that's my preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
I challenge you.
Mhm.
Think of maybe even do like host your friends for an event where no one spends much money. Can you all hang out, entertain yourselves, chat?
Again, I feel comfortable doing that with one or two friends, but if I were to entertain a group of,
Fine, just do it with a couple close friends.
yeah, that's fine. I would have, I would just cook up whatever I have in the fridge. Um, watch some TV. Yeah, that's fine. But again, I think that's more about maintaining, less so about creating new like.
Well, have you ever chatted with someone like randomly at a park or a coffee shop or something?
I should do that more. I have, but not as much as.
I mean, it's like you said earlier, right? You like to break that Seattle freeze, which for folks who aren't, how would you define the Seattle freeze? You talked about it, and some people aren't from Seattle.
Sure, yeah. So when I read about Seattle Freeze, it was
Okay.
Seattle subreddit or Seattle WA. People are saying how in Seattle, especially in the winter, are very unresponsive, uh, and or they don't take initiative making plans with. And when you do make plans, when they do to come to plans, they like and they bail on you, and they won't reach out again. Basically, they're just very passive, and this is especially true for people who are coupled up. I heard. I have not experienced that myself. Well, I might have, yeah. But so I definitely like pay attention to people and are also looking for other people to spend time with.
Yeah. Okay, so is that how the Seattle freeze like works for you, or is that how you envision the Seattle freeze? So yeah, is that how you would define it?
Right. So yeah, I think it's basically comes down to lack of.
Yeah. So you say that you are the one who likes to break it. So how do you like kind of melt that?
I because I like going to events and going to I subscribe to a bunch of letters, Instagram accounts, for all these concerts, festivals, just like random activities in Seattle. If I see something I like, I I send them to my friends or like new friends, old friends, and see if anyone else is interested. And I'll ask if I can get tickets for all of us and maybe do a game at my. I do like planning activities, friends, and these are typically things that we have to commit in advance. Helps to kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
And you do, like you mentioned, you do things like salsa and things like and there are plenty of like free events, like great places to meet people.
I went to as a pay.
Well, there are free salsa events
Sure.
too, and there's like free yogas in the.
Yes, I went to the
Yeah, I go to the one in South,
nice.
which is it's a great place to like meet people, want to meet people, and you take the initiative, you care about these connections. So there are opportunities for connecting with people.
I think I still need to learn to meet people, net new people that I had zero connection with before, and you said maybe going to the park and just like walking
Yeah.
up to someone and say hi. I need to be better at doing.
How would you like someone to approach you to like initiate a conversation?
Hmm. It really depends on the context, like where, when.
Let's say it's an appropriate time. You're not clearly doing something where your attention is like super driven on something important. You're not like saving someone on the. You're not like dealing with a distressed
That's all I
couple.
do.
You're not sleeping on a bed on like a couch or something. You're outside. You're hanging out. Maybe you're reading a book or something, or like enjoying outside. How would you like someone to, or maybe like it's at salsa and you're like hanging out, like taking a little break. How would you like someone to approach you in that?
I don't think I have an expect.
Well, I guess, sorry, I meant like, how would you approach someone? That's what I
How would
meant.
I approach
Yeah.
someone? I would try to say something. I don't just say hi, how are you today? I would try to pay attention to little things about them and what makes them stand out to me and comment on that or ask about that.
I think that's a good way. I think that's a great way to do it. It shows more than, shows some like, at least like something caught your attention. But could you also say like, hey, how's it going?
So here's the thing, I don't like to small talk. So it will be hard for me to start a conversation that way. Because it will be hard for me to answer a question like that as well.
Why would it be hard to answer? How's it going?
What do you want to know?
I didn't. It's not meant to be an interview.
Right, but
I didn't have any expectations coming into this.
I think that's just how maybe it's the culture I'm coming from. That's how I think of
Okay, so
how conversations go.
What do you think is a question that maybe is in between like small talk and deep talk?
Yeah, so at salsa last week, I think I was standing next to this woman, and there was like this huge fan next to us.
Yeah.
It was really hot.
Yeah.
And I was commenting at how hot it was, and it was like smiling and nodding along. So I was like, is this your first time at the studio? Like, how long have you danced salsa before?
Mm-hmm.
So I would try to be a little more specific.
But you started with small talk.
Sure, this could be small talk.
Commenting on how hot it is. That's like not saying anything about you, not saying anything about her. I mean, and it's a fine way to start. It's because you're commenting on a shared experience.
Right. So commenting on how hot it was, she actually didn't respond to that much because what can she say?
She like acknowledged. She acknowledged that you started a conversation, right?
But it wasn't until I asked about her salsa experience.
Yeah.
Then she started to talk in like full sentences.
Oh, that's totally fine. Yeah. But you know, she probably needed that. It's hot here for her to even acknowledge that I need to start paying attention to.
Sure.
Like you're someone, because she was like, have you ever experienced where like someone like calls out or like someone's talking to you and you don't realize until like a couple seconds later that they were trying to talk to you? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's very common. I think people get like caught up in themselves, especially if they're like distressed, right? She's hot. She's like just trying to cool off. She's not, there's a lot of music going on, a lot of activity. She may not be paying attention to you. So I think you need to start with some kind of greeting or something to like get someone's attention so that you can't have a conversation if they're not going to pay attention.
I think that's actually a really good to start conversation.
Yeah.
That kind of shows that I have no bad intention. I'm observation. And it is your common experience, or your shared experience. Then you follow that with a question.
Yeah. And asking something deep, like, well, maybe not deep, but like more than just like, how are you doing? Asking about salsa experience, that's a great thing to do. It's contextual. Yep. So like you did it last week, right? You went up to someone, you had a conversation, and that's all it takes. Most people are just like us. We just, we're all friendly. We want to connect. We're all human. And
are we? Well, because I guess I would say that I wouldn't have a desire to go up to just anyone and talk to them like that.
Well, you don't have to do it with every single person out there. But the point is just opening yourself to do it with potentially anyone. It doesn't have to be everybody, but open yourself to possibility of anybody.
I don't know about anybody. What if I just can't find any clues of shared experience I have?
Do you think there are people out there that you have shared experience with?
Like very, very little shared experience.
Oh,
Not enough for me to be interested about.
That's fair. But if you're occupying a similar environment, sure, there would be something that you could share. Literally, people talk about the weather, because no matter who you are, no matter who you are, if you are having a face-to-face conversation with someone, you probably experience similar weather.
See, that's where I don't want to go to. I don't want to have.
But you literally did that. Weather. You did that at the salsa club.
Well, but it was because of the studio, the venue that we were in.
It doesn't matter. It was hot today, and I said hi, good morning to someone, and they were like, it's hot, And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Maybe I just like complaining about the heat.
A lot of people do, especially in Seattle, where it's usually a nice temperate weather, and here where you like never need AC, so none of the apartments have AC. And then when it gets hot for like a week or a month, people freak out, and it's all that everyone can talk about. But that's why, like, I think there's always something you can comment on that's a shared experience if you're having a conversation in person. If you're like in an online community in a chat room, well, you also have a shared experience. Like the thing that brought you two together or brought you in this same conversation space, the shared experience. That's something that you can initiate a conversation on if you want to. It doesn't have to stay there. You don't have to go into all the details of the weather and how it's affecting you. You can just go immediately to another question, like a question I like to ask, and I even started this whole episode on this question, and regular viewers will know I start a lot of my conversations with the question, what excites you? Because a question, it's a simple question to ask, but it's a fun one because you get to see a little bit about who people are and how they answer. Usually it's the kind of question that, like, it's different from like, what are your hobbies or what do you like to do? Because excites evokes this emotional aspect. So people, you can't just use the first thing that comes to your mind. People have to then go into like their heart and figure out like, what is actually like, what am I passionate about? And they'll talk about that, and I'll get to learn a little bit about them, a little bit about their inner world or their authentic chaos.
Oh, I like that. Asking strangers that question.
Yeah, and you'll get some cool things. I've met people who talked about being like really passionate about animal conservation, or like passionate about like a book they're reading, or like a new hobby that they're taking up. There's so many cool things you can learn just from like seeing what they're currently excited about. And you know what? The cool thing is that what you're excited about changes. So you can ask the same person that same question in different times, and you'll get different answers, and it's awesome. I highly encourage it. Go ask someone who's close to you. What's exciting you lately?
What does that tell you?
It's more about how they answer and the follow-up questions. So I like to ask questions about words people use, or the things that they talk, the order that they talk about things, because I think that we go through, at least I go through a lot of internal thinking about how I want to express a lot of the ideas out to other people so that they can understand as accurately as they can what I'm going through, my experience. So because of that, I like to think that if I ask right questions to people, they stop thinking with their like automatic brain and like just saying things that come to their mind, and they more dig into their like their like feelings too, and like really give me a little bit of a fuller answer about who they are. Like we talked about like your inner world and your outer world, and the first thing you mentioned were the differences, but then when we talked about the similarities, we started to understand a little bit more about your core values, the things that both hold dear, which is emphasis on kindness. And I've gone through very similar things too. Years ago, I was talking to my therapist about how my therapist pointed out to me how I had different versions of myself. There was a Vahagan I had growing up. There was a Vahagan I had for my family, a Vahagan for my friends, a Vahagan for school. Like all these different situations had different versions of me. And then like even when I was like in my 20s in Seattle, I had a different me for different friends. Depending on the context that my friends knew me in, I had different versions of myself that I showed. So I kind of had like 6 or 7 versions of me at a time. And it wasn't until I was challenged by my therapist to tear down the walls between these different Vahagans that I was able to come to a more harmonious state of self. It was less like me trying to compartmentalize different versions of me or different aspects of me, and more of realizing that I am all of these people. I am all of those Vahagans, and I'm all of the past Vahagans, and I am all of the will-be future Vahagans, and I am the Vahagan that is right now. And I can pick and choose anything that I want from all these versions of me to be me, because they're all me in the first place. And that was a necessary part for me to really understand my authentic chaos and find this serenity within the chaos. It's not about, I mean, hell, it's your namesake. It's not about finding this calmness, or not about like finding order, because we can't find that order. We are chaotic. The world is chaotic. Life is chaos. It's about finding that sense of ease. That the word I was introduced to this week was equanimity.
That means
It's this like sense of ease, calm within this storm of chaos, finding this balance within yourself. It's probably not exactly that. That's probably not the exact definition, but that's how I've interpreted it. Like being, going with reality, going with the flow, not fighting it.
yeah.
'Cause when you fight it, that's when that's what causes resistance. That's what causes internal strife. When you fight who you are.
Have you ever been in situations, say like maybe professional setting at work, and you catch yourself very close to burst out some appropriate comment?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've gotten very upset at work or frustrated, for sure. What do you think? Have you felt like that?
Of course, yes.
Why do you say of course?
Because I was just listening, and like how you were saying that you want to like go with the flow. I can't say it the way that you did. You said it very well.
Thanks.
Kind of just like letting yourself out, letting the different selves like become one. And I find that challenging because although I love my inner and outer worlds, me equally, I don't think they can show up at certain places at certain time.
That's fair. And maybe that's more of an indication of like how toxic work culture can be, because you can't be your authentic self.
Right.
You're forced to be outer world serene. You're forced to hide the things that make you weird, because I find that people at work are much more they're much more discriminating about the things that your vulnerabilities, things that like make you more you. At work, you are considered your role. You're looked at for your output, not considered for who you are. Even sometimes your coworkers will refer to you by like what you've done or what you're doing, rather than who you are as a person. And that's just the nature of the beast. At work, we're taught to look at ourselves less as humans and more as workers. We are part of this. We are cogs in a machine creating value. Who we are doesn't matter. And that's a toxic situation. If you were in a friend group and they said, we don't want to, like, we only want to hang out with fun, what would you say?
Well, I actually don't think, I wasn't thinking about a toxic environment or friend group environment. I just feel like it's more, to me, it feels more like I do have different versions of myself, borrowing a word, and I have different versions of myself, and sometimes some certain versions are more appropriate environments for whatever reason, but the other versions kind of want to come out.
Well, why don't you let them partially? Can you find a situation, or can you find a compromise even in work? Can you find a situation or a compromise where you can be mostly outer world you, but also maybe give some of the inner world you a bone, like give some of the inner world you a chance to express yourself, maybe through creativity or through showing empathy, or however you want to show yourself, or however you decide is an appropriate way to show yourself.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. But I think my argument from saying all that is that I do think sometimes it's necessary and healthy to keep my version separate.
Like what do you see within your, like what's an example of things should be separated in the context of work?
Sometimes at work, I'll say we are in a very heated discussion, and the inner world me, or I don't know which world this is in, but like sometimes I just don't really care. And I'm usually like passionate about the work I do, and I want to, get to the source of truth. But sometimes I just have this urge to say, you know what, fuck it, I don't care, just do do what you like. Um, yeah, but I sometimes I think that in my head a lot of the times, but I know I can't say it.
Okay, so it seems like there's this urge here.
Hmm?
There's this screaming need within you to say, like, this isn't important, or it doesn't feel important. Maybe next time explore like where that's coming from. Maybe it's legitimate. Maybe it's like inner world Serene saying this isn't a argument worth having. I can't tell you how many meetings I was in when I was a software engineer. So many meetings about arguments that didn't need to be arguments. Arguments that were ultimately completely unnecessary and just wasted everyone's time. But because everyone was so stubborn, we kept having to rehash the same argument. And why? There was like no one, there were some people that did definitely care. I didn't care. So at a point, I decided I'm not actually, you know what? This isn't actually something that's important enough to warrant me caring. That means it's probably not that important.
I think in my situation, the rational me knows that it is important. I would. But irrational me was. That's
Why?
not
What is? Why is it rational to care? Or is it always rational to care? Say
It's
that.
not always rational.
Okay.
But for certain decisions, actually, for the most part, like the work I do, I like to think um for the customers, for the users, for my coworkers. Um, but I think for me personally, as a person, I might be experiencing burnout. I might feel that I have more urgent issues in my life that I have to attend to.
Yeah.
Um, that's when I feel like it's doesn't matter for me.
Well, can't you say? Well, okay. So in those cases, what if you said, "Hey, I think this is an important conversation. I want to be fully a part of this, but I'm going through something right now. I don't think I can. Can you give me like a day? Can we talk about this another time?"
Isn't that the constant state though? Because I feel like from the years that I've worked as a professional, I have felt like that if 90% of the time, if not all the time.
Well, then maybe that's something to explore. Maybe there's a need there that's being chronically unfulfilled.
Interesting, because I'm almost accepting that that's a reality and that's the norm, and I just have to manage it better so that the crazy me gets to like rest
The
more.
crazy you.
Or like the indifferent me gets to like rest more and um
Do all of these have to be like passionate arguments? Because it sounds like you're pushing yourself to have these arguments that you don't want to have, and I don't quite understand why.
Arguments at work.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not all arguments, but they are. It's like I think of it as like people trying to prove a, and I'm constantly being asked, and I think it's just not in my inner world. There's no need to prove a.
Yeah. What if you expressed that? Maybe take it case by case. Maybe some of these arguments are worth having. But if you think that it's just some pedantic, like they're just trying to prove a point, maybe ask them to like do the work, prove that point, and then you can discuss over that.
What if it is my work? Prove a point, because I do think it's kind of like almost every job function has to prove in order to run the business.
Well, if it's an argument over your job, I mean, yeah, do your job for sure. You take an agreement with the company to do the job that you're paid to do for sure. But I don't know. I at least found that some arguments were always esoteric, and people would just make arguments to make arguments and claim data that they didn't have. So sometimes I'd ask, okay, show me the data, and then we can talk over that. If you're just having an esoteric argument about why we should do one thing over another, I want to see show me the data, show me the numbers.
Yeah, no, I like to think that for the most part, the arguments I've had, they are meaningful. But for some reason, I'm just not able to. So that's why I felt like, yes, I should be having that conversation. I should be, like expressing my opinions and being part of the discussion. But I have to balance the different versions of myself, and neither of them is wrong. But I think for me, adulting is very much about knowing when and how to apply it one version, and like of letting the other version shine, or like pushing the other version out.
It's like learning the lessons of your own domestication.
Yeah.
I've been having conversations with my girlfriend where she was reading a book on animal domestication. And there's a lot of similarities in how humans evolved to domesticate animals, how we domesticate children, and how we domesticate ourselves. Like we are taught in cases of work, like things like we're taught to ignore our feelings in terms of, like, let's say eating dinner, right? You're told to finish your plate. Even if you complain to your parent, but I'm full, I don't want to eat anymore. Say, no, you've got food, you've got to finish your food. Like, is that something that you ever experienced? Yeah. Right, and that's our parents teaching us to ignore our feelings, ignore our like sense of like self and our needs, and listening to them. And then we're taught like how a job is supposed to be, and like normalizing being inauthentic in ourselves, and like shunning a lot of the things. Like, yeah, I mean a lot of people don't really care about their jobs, and a lot of people have arguments at work with people, very passionate arguments about things they don't really care about. And it's because we're taught that is what we're supposed to do. We're taught, like you said, it's part of your job. You even said earlier, if you didn't do this, then the business wouldn't be able to make money. As if you're taking on the needs of the company, the needs of your business. The business are saying you need to have these arguments. And then there are your needs saying, I don't care to have these arguments. Why am I getting stressed out about something I don't really care about? So there's this clash going on. At least I've had this clash go on within me, where I realized that my emotional needs had been steadily replaced by the emotional needs of my company.
How does your company have emotion?
Well, it's not really emotional. but the company has needs and they express it very clearly and very strongly. Usually those needs are around making money. The company is very happy when it makes money. And so your whole job, you're taught like all the things that you're supposed to do and the ways to think in order to make money in the company way, like leadership principles, morals, statements from the company, whatever. Company culture, even the whole culture of a company is aimed around giving you new needs. It helps you suppress your inner world or your inner self, the part of you that's like has the actual emotional needs you have, and you replace it with the rational you. Like even referring to it as rational and irrational is like kind of saying like, well, this is obviously the way things are supposed to be. Obviously, human brains are developed in a way, are like linked in a way that we have to go through these natural hierarchies and generate imaginary value for shareholders that we've never met in order to make them happy. Obviously, that's the way that we're supposed to live. And we then like think in terms of our companies. We use the language of the company in our normal days. We talk about productivity. Like, imagine how many times have you talked to someone about their weekend and they've responded, or maybe you've responded, oh yeah, it was pretty productive. Like, why is productive an adjective that we use to describe how good our weekend was? Productivity is the definition of a company. It is a word of capitalism. Why do we care about productivity? I'm not generating value for something. I'm living my life. That is value in itself.
A better word for saying that you did a lot of things for yourself, would a better word for that be?
Yeah, I would say that. And I would say like, I think the words that we use matter. I know some people don't agree with me on this, but I think the language we use matters a lot because language hides a lot of the biases that we have in our minds. A lot of who we are deep down is tied to our language. So when we absent-mindedly use the language of our companies, it's a sign to me that we've taken on the needs of our company.
By telling the story this way.
Oh, you're not being picked up. Yeah. By telling the story that way, I'm not being like, you're reinforcing this idea that the company is like that. This is what is necessary. This is what is good.
Yeah.
Like people like will think about work outside of work. I used to think about work outside of work hours, like think about problems at work. I used to talk to friends about work all the time. My ex hated it. And to be fair, now that I don't do a lot of that anymore. I mean, obviously I'm unemployed, so I don't think about it. But even before that, I was making intentional efforts to cut out talking about work with my former coworkers outside of work, because in doing that, I was reducing the mental energy and the mental space that work was taking up in me. And then I could get to know my coworkers as friends instead of former coworkers.
That's so interesting because I told you how my work had a conference this week, and they flew in employees from all around the country, and I didn't really enjoy, meeting those people as much as some of them did, because for me, I'm having trouble making friends at work.
How come?
I think it might be the subconscious me trying to separate work from life. I don't want to talk to you much about my personal life at work. I don't want to hear about yours either. Let's just keep it as work.
Wait, how come?
So, I don't know.
Are your coworkers not unique people worthy of connections?
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're great. But it's just...
She said so convincingly.
Kind of like me protecting my inner self at work.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're using this like inner and outer world lingo.
Yeah. So fast forward to this conference. You didn't like meeting them as much?
It was cordial. But I would, what I would like to do? I would like to use all my work time dedicated to work, not talk about life. And after 5, 6 p.m., I don't want to hear from you ever again.
That seems pretty harsh, Serene. Do you think you could ever be friends with a coworker? Like genuine friends?
I have been at my first job out of college. My entire team was new grad, and I actually one of my coworkers and I became roommates.
Okay.
But it wasn't a very long lasting friendship because I moved away and I'm just like fell out of touch. So I don't know. I feel like the work environment is pretty artificial. You're not gathered together here because you have shared experience.
Oh, for sure. It is completely arbitrary. But you know what? So is being at a bar.
That's why I don't talk to people at bars.
Or being at salsa.
There's a little bit more shared experience there. You have shared interests.
Well, you've shared experience at work through your work.
Right, but then when you talk about that part of the experience, it's still work.
Yeah, right. But I guess my point is that just like when you went up to that person at salsa, you didn't immediately start a conversation by talking about salsa. You talked about a more like in your face shared experience. And you had a conversation. And being at work is just as being placed just as randomly as being at a park or being. So why not take advantage of the situation of being near other people that might be uniquely them and like that?
Do you think it could be that I truly haven't met the people that I could become friends with, or I haven't tried hard enough to uncover that?
I don't know. I haven't experienced any of these interactions, so I can't say for certain. I'd say that is just be open to the possibilities and open your heart to new connections. I took this mantra last year of you never know who's going to change your life. Every person that ends up being the most important people in your life, like your chosen family, or even your real family, they all start out as strangers to you. There was a past where you hadn't met them before, and there's a future where you have a deep relationship or deep connection. But you have to meet them before you even get that. So why not try to meet people? Because you never know who's going to change your life.
Doesn't it become exhausting though when you start making so many new connections and you have to spend time and energy maintaining?
Not every connection needs the same amount of energy. Not every relationship lasts a lifetime. Some relationships end with hello. Sometimes, ultimately, first and foremost, you have to take care of your needs. When your inner self is screaming at you, it is screaming for a reason. And if you don't listen to it, that's where you'll cause yourself some pain. Fear a lot of us don't listen to.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm working on.
But like if you can make connections in a place where your inner self feels good, do it.
That's when my intuition comes in.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of the vibe check and see if this is someone I want to talk to. In that sense, I don't think I'm as open-minded. I wouldn't be able to just.
That's fair. Not everyone can do it, and that's totally fine. Like no judgment, right? Like, but the point is like you feel the vibes, right? When you find someone, like sometimes you can't explain why they're mutual vibes or like something like mutually good for both of you. But like you get that feeling that there is some kind of nice connection. Maybe you want to explore that. And maybe your like overlap of vibes is smaller than my overlap, and maybe mine is smaller than another person's, and that's totally fine.
What do you mean overlap?
Like maybe you vibe with fewer people than I do, and maybe I vibe with fewer people than other people, and that's fine. You know what? It doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter. The point is that you are opening yourself up and letting your intuition kind of guide you in making these connections. You're not like shutting yourself off to really beautiful relationships.
And I think the difficult part or the challenging part of that is sometimes your intuition could be wrong.
What does wrong mean?
That just because you feel drawn towards this person doesn't mean that they feel the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that is accepting that you don't have all the information. You don't have the same brain that the person you're trying to connect with
You can never have the same information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that realizing that you can never have it, then you can start to accept that, like, okay, there's a chance that it's not going to work out. Like I said, sometimes relationships end with hello, and that's okay. The point isn't that every relationship the mantra isn't that everyone you meet is going to change your life. That you never know who is going to change your life. You can't find those magical connections unless you put yourself out there, your heart to.
What's your advice for people who feel very jaded?
Trust me, I felt plenty jaded myself, like especially with dating. I had been dating for a couple of years and felt like, I mean, very jaded at times. But what helped me was talking to a lot of people about like frustrations and getting some of their insights. Like, focus less on the relationships you think you want and more about what your needs are. When you think about your needs, then start to think about, okay, ask yourself, what if I never got into, like, let's say a romantic relationship as an example. Say you never date again. This is it. You're single forever. Can you live a happy life? So if you can live a happy life, how do you live that happy life now?
How I'm operating now.
Perfect. Then keep doing. Then that's it. That's the advice. Ask yourself, what do you need to choose happiness right now, and do that. Listen to what your needs are, and the point of this is to listen to what your needs are. The things that you want in this relationship that you aren't getting, and maybe explore how you can get those needs met through other things. Leverage your community. Maybe you have an emotional need of needing a supportive partner to like support you through your career. But do you need like a romantic partner? Do you need a specific person to fill that role? Or can multiple friends fill that role? Can family fill that role and help you satisfy those needs? Without really understanding those needs, you can never hope to satisfy them. And I fear that a lot of people, myself included, we rush into hopes of relationships without understanding what we really want or what we really need, and then we can feel jaded because things don't work out, and we feel like, oh, nothing is working. I'm gonna be single forever, and it sucks because because I have this weird feeling in me because I'm not getting these feelings met. But if you get those needs met, then you can say, actually, it's okay. I'm okay. And then there's no reason to be jaded because you don't need a relationship.
I think I feel jaded at times, not because my needs are not being met, or because that I formed these connections that didn't.
What was there? I mean, it's totally fine to mourn. That's a very real feeling.
And there's just this like overall like sadness throughout my life where I feel like it didn't last. Like my childhood friends moved away from school, moved away, or I left, and relationships didn't work out for whatever reasons. I don't think I miss them because they fulfill my needs at some. Well, they sure did, but it's just more like
they did in the past.
They did in the past. Yeah. That's why I like them.
And it sounds like it left some scars.
Yeah, I think it's just like I don't feel as excited about like meeting new people as
how have you dealt with this sadness?
How do I deal? Have I dealt? Or?
Yeah.
I think I treasure the memories. I down a memory lane a lot. Think about I always remember the positives over.
Well, then, could you imagine that another connection could also fill that level of
Well, I'm
positivity?
sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
What's stopping you finding those connections? 'Cause it sounds like these past connections had really profound impacts on you. So it sounds like you already understand how beautiful it can be.
Yeah, but I it just feels like there's an like overload of people that you cross paths.
Hmm? And
And
that's what goes back to your intuition.
yeah,
Like, it's less about what makes sense as people you connect with. Like, maybe you're right. Maybe you don't want to connect with any of your coworkers because the vibes aren't there. And that's a fine. I think that's a great reason to not connect with someone. Honestly. Like, if your intuition is telling you this is not someone I want to interact with, fine. But if your intuition is saying this is someone who maybe we should explore with, go for it.
right. I think generally, I'm pretty acting my intuition, but sometimes the fear and the worries become too much that prevented me from.
Maybe the key is to trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust that no matter what happens, you can handle what happens. Because if you can trust your future self, what do you have to be worried about?
I think when I think about like having the memory over,
Yeah.
um, I'm trying to convince myself that that's okay. That I occasionally think about people in the past and people that I don't talk to, and that's okay. And I want to simplify. I don't want to think about oh could have and what could have and could have.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I think that's a much more present way to live and to live and make connection, harmony.
It's just fascinating to me. Billions and billions. That some of them last for a very long.
Oh yeah, I think about that all the time. And it's cool. Like, and it's like timing is a big factor in it too. Some people are not in the right space at the right time to make the connection. And maybe you cross paths with someone multiple times and then eventually your paths cross and it's just the right conditions for you
Yeah.
to say, let's chat. And that's fine too. Because there's so many potential connections, so many opportunities out there, I don't think there's any rush. If you follow your heart, you follow your intuition, see where the vibes are. And if your intuition's saying go for it, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to have FOMO. There's no reason to feel like you need a rush. Just do what feels right for you.
Letting go of control.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
But you gain freedom when you let go of that. You get the freedom to be you. You give yourself permission to integrate the inner and the outer.
Mm-hmm.
Create that harmony.
Right. I think trying to separate the inner and outer is a form of control.
Yeah. 100%. Our ego is telling us that we don't, it's judgment, it's self-judgment.
But would you agree that
I think sometimes you need to show up in various degrees. Some situations you can't be as authentic as other situations.
how do you not act crazy at work?
Well, I think that's a matter of like first you have to recognize what is crazy.
Right.
What does crazy
when
even
I say
mean?
crazy, I don't mean like actually like being psychotic is fine too, but like what I mean is that like the crazy is be considered very normal.
I think it's a complicated answer. There's some situations where it makes sense. There are others where it doesn't. I would say I always go back to your intuition. What feels like the right thing to do? If you're in a situation and you want to like tell your authentic opinion, it's kind of a gut check. Like you're in a new situation, no one's going to be able to tell you what the right time is to show up authentically. No one's going to be able to tell you the wrong time. There may be consequences. But you know what? There are consequences for all of our actions, everything we do.
Yeah.
And like assuming that but that shouldn't stop us from showing up in the way that feels right for us. So don't worry about the external so much. Just focus on finding that harmony inside.
I think there are a lot of cons. I just can't.
If it's so consequential, authentic, then maybe there's some things that need to be sorted out first.
Possibly.
And that's not a judgment. That's just like something to explore. I don't know for certain. I don't know what's going on.
I feel like a lot of my issues back to
Oh.
that is. I don't think there's a.
Yeah, no, that makes it really difficult. And if we had more time, I would love to talk about that. Maybe that actually, I think that deserves a whole episode on its own. Because I think that's a good point. You have that burden that I don't have. Being a citizen, I don't have this burden of work for me.
Job security.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Well, Serene, it's been really lovely chatting. Do you have any last words you'd like to say to our audience?
I still think it's great to have inner and outer worlds, and I am learning to take care of the two selves, the two different worlds, and yeah, making sure they're doing well, they're healthy, knowing when to come out and when to rest. I think it's like the theme, and it's something that I'm feeling very inspired about.
Beautiful sentiment. Listen to yourself. Well, thank you, Serene, for joining us. It was really great chatting. And thank you so much for experiencing this with us. If you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to like, share, and subscribe and follow the channel. It really helps. Follow us on Instagram for more updates. And if you'd like to chat, let me know. If you have questions, let me know. I'd love to have more people on. And as always, embrace your chaos with kindness. Thank you so much.